Hello, welcome to Hankins Custom Rifles and another episode of Hank's TV. This video is going to be on the machining of the Hankins ramrod retaining block. Now, if you watched video number 1, you will have seen the retaining block, what it looks like. I gave a little brief description of how it works and why we make that block. So now we're going to show you how we make it and go over it step by step. The material, when I order my material, it comes in 12-foot long bars, okay? When I go and pick it up at a local steel place here in town, I always have them cut it in half, 6 feet, and that way I can just stick it in the back of my truck. I'm not carrying a 12-foot long bar of metal down the road. And it also allows me, when I'm cutting it, I can cut 2 pieces at one time. Now I could cut this in half again and I could cut 4 pieces at one time. But I always wind up with a drop about 6 inches, 8 inches long that I can't use for much. So if I cut it in half again, I'm gonna have 4 pieces that are drops instead of only 2 pieces that are drops. So we're gonna set this up on the little bandsaw that I've got, and we're gonna start cutting these into pieces to first start the first operation of making the ramrod retaining block. Okay guys, we're over here at the saw, and this is just a cheap little saw that I bought from Grizzly a couple of years ago, and I would think within just a couple of months of owning the saw, the screw that goes right here that tightens the clamp broke. I mean, it was just, I don't know if it was just broke from the factory when I got it or if it was defective or what. But anyway, I haven't fixed it, and temporarily what I've been doing is I'm using a little C-clamp right in here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I use that C-clamp just tight enough to hold my bar stock. I've got a little stop set up right here, so when I slide my bars forward, turn the saw on, it will cut 2 pieces, 1.25 inches long. And that gives me a little cleanup stock on both sides to bring it into the 1/200 inch that I want to use. So I'm going to raise my saw up. I'm going to slide my bars forward till it touches the stop easy and turn it on. Now I've got a little cardboard box that I'm going to put the pieces in. And now I'm ready to cut another one. And I'll just do this until the entire bar is cut. Slide it in easy, don't beat the stop or it'll move it. And then I'll check one every now and then. 255, 254 or so. So I'll check every couple of ones to make sure that the stop don't move. I don't want to cut them excessively long, because if I cut every one of them at 1.300 inch, by the time I get to the end of my bar, I would have thrown away a part, because I'm going to make chips out of it cleaning it up. So at 250 inch, that gives me just a couple thousandths on each side. That's all I need. 25 thousandths on each side to clean it up. a little splash pan right here that keeps some of the coolant from hitting the floor. We got a splash pan over here on this side that catches some. And then there's always a little bit that drips off of the part because the coolant's going to run backwards on the part. You're going to have a few drips on the floor. And, you know, that's not really a big deal. You just got to clean it up at the end of the day. So all we got to do now is cut this whole bar up. And once that's done, I'll get back with you guys and go to the next step. Okay guys, I think you got a better view that time of the saw in action. I mean, this is not a really sophisticated operation here, just sawing parts. Okay guys, there's all the blocks that are cut up. There's probably close to 100, maybe 104 in that box. And as you can see, there's a little bit of a mess on the floor. There's a mess on the saw. Got chips piled up on it. That'll all have to be cleaned off. And that's what I've got left. Those two little pieces there that are still in the vise on the saw, that's what's left. So we cut it all up. I'm going to take you in the other room now to the deburr, and we'll deburr these parts. Okay guys, we're over here at the mill, and I've just set these boxes on the mill table to have a place to set them. And this box has got the parts in it that I just cut, and it's got saw chips and coolant all over them, so it makes them kind of hard to handle. So the next step after sawing is cleaning up the parts, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm cleaning them up. I'm taking them out of this box and just simply tossing them over into this box. So I'll do a couple of them just real quick to show you what we're doing here, and then we'll get on over to the deburr. So what I'm going to do is take my air hose, just a high pressure air hose right here, and I'm going to grab 2 or 3 of these, put them in my hand, and just blow them off. Toss them in the other box. So you kind of get the picture here what we're doing, just cleaning these parts up so that the next time we handle them we don't get all this stuff on our hands. You can see all these chips and stuff. You got to get rid of them, so you might as well do it right now between your next operation. So that's all we're going to show on the cleanup. Next time we'll be over at the deburr machine. Okay guys, we're over at the deburr machine, and this is the grinding room where I do all my grinding, whether it's grinding these kind of parts or shortening screws for action bolts or whatever it might be. We do all of our grinding right here, and I've got a little benchtop grinder over here in the corner. So this is where all the grinding dust is at. This is a messy room, but it is what it is, and we're going to grind a few of these now. And what I'm going to do, when I turn this on, you ain't going to be able to hear me talk. So I might as well do the talking now and tell you what we're going to do. We're only going to deburr one side of the saw cut. because it's going to go in the milling machine next. And what we're going to do is the deburred side would be the side we use up against the stop in the milling machine, so that we can bring this side to a true dimension. Then we'll wind up deburring this side again so that we can put it in the milling machine the second time. But we're only going to deburr one side now, machine it, then deburr the side that we machined. So I'm going to do 4 or 5 of these for you on camera, show you how I'm doing this. Now you just take it, touch it on the sandpaper, move it across, turn it up. You're going to do all 4 sides of one end of the block, and then we're just going to toss it into this other box. So I've got the box of cut parts here that's been cleaned up and blowed off with air hose. And I've got the empty box here that we're going to put them in. So here we go. We'll do 4 or 5 of these for you. Okay, so you get the picture there, and I dropped one on the floor. So I want to give you another little pointer here. Whenever you're deburring a part on a belt grinder or a grinding stone or anything that you're deburring with, you always want to put your part into the sandpaper or the grinding belt, the grinding wheel, the stone, whatever you're using. You always want to hold it at a downward angle. If you hold it at an upward angle like this, and that sandpaper grabs it, it'll flip it around so hard and fast that it can cut your fingers. It'll slam it into the floor. And I know this from experience because I've done it. But you don't ever want to put your part into your paper or your contact wheel or whatever you're using at an upward angle. Always hold it downward and you'll be safe. So we've got some of these deburred. We're going to go over to the milling machine now. I'm going to set that up and I'll show you the next operation in making these ramrod retaining blocks. Okay guys, we're set up on the Bridgeport mill, and I'm going to go ahead and machine these on the manual machine with the Bridgeport, because believe it or not, it's actually faster to just do this one little operation with the Bridgeport mill than it would be to put it in the CNC mill and have to close the door and wait for a tool to load and change and the coolant comes on and all that stuff. So when you just got a simple job, one little operation or something really easy, it's a lot quicker to do it in the Bridgeport. Now you can see I've got 12 pieces deburred. I only did 12 of them so that I could move on along through the video and try to get this video done this afternoon. So what we do now is you're going to take one and you're going to look at it, see which one of the edges have been deburred, which you can see it's this edge right here. It's been deburred with a piece of 80 grit sandpaper belt over there on my little deburr machine, and you can see that this side has not been deburred. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this in the vise. And remember now guys, I'm working with one hand here. We're going to put that in, push that in square up against this stop. I set this stop on here, and that's just a little clamp on stop. You can move it wherever you want to, up and down your vices, depending on how big your parts are. I set it where I've got just a little bit hanging over here, about 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to push it in nice and square. And I would do this with both hands. I'd have one hand pushing the part in, the other hand tightening up the vise. But I'm down to one hand because the other hand's holding the camera. When I put it back on the tripod, I'll use both hands. But now you just tighten the vise up and it's ready to be machined. I've got it already preset. It's ready to go. And all we're going to do is cut off about 10-15 thousandths on this side, just clean it up. We'll let the CNC machine handle the other side. So I'm going to mount the camera back on the tripod and we'll be right back. Okay guys, we're set up and ready to make our first cut to bring one edge of this piece of aluminum to a dimension. It's going to be perfectly straight, square, with the factory edge of the parts that we're making. So we just want to put this in this vise, and now that I've got both hands, I'm going to push in with one hand, tighten the vise handle with the other hand, and don't have to be really tight. I'm going to pull this down. I got a stop set, and again, when I turn the machine on, you guys ain't going to be able to hear me, so we're going to just run across this surface right here and clean it up. Alright, so now we've done one. We got a nice clean surface on here now. It's square to the factory edge. We don't know for sure that that bandsaw in there would cut perfectly square, so we need to put it in a machine and bring it to square. So now we know that that is square. That piece is done. We're just going to do another one. Put that one in. Do the same thing. Now, once I'm not doing this on camera anymore, I'll never turn the spindle off. I'm just turning it off so that you guys can hear me. And when I get set up and really run these things, I'll leave the spindle on the whole time I'm running. I'm climb milling because if you conventional mill, it'll leave a burr. I'll do a conventional mill and show you what I'm talking about. Now you can see that nasty burr that's left on here. It's not really that bad. You can wipe them off, but you can also get them stuck in your fingers. So I just prefer to do a climb mill. It's easy enough to loosen this little stop right here and raise your spindle up. And back up to the beginning to do your next one. Now, however you do it, you eventually, after you've done a bunch, you'll get a rhythm going and you'll do the same thing every time. Okay, that's it for these. I'm not going to do every one of them on the camera, but you guys get the picture of how this works. Okay, we got all 12 of these done, and I'm just going to run us through with a batch of 12, and I'll finish up the rest of them tonight. But this first batch of 12 that I'm going to run us through, we're just going to take a quick measurement and see how wide they are. We got 240, and we've got this edge completely cleaned up. That's what we wanted to achieve. That way, if this edge is a little bit out of square or something, it might be 240 on one end. Let's see what the other end is. 237. So that saw of mine cuts pretty straight, but you never know. You might have one that don't cut straight. You guys that's run band saws before know that sometimes they'll run crooked, or you might have your part might be clamped up at a little bit of an angle or whatever. Your support in the rear may not be exactly level with the bed of the saw, make it cut crooked. So we're going to go back over now to the sander, the deburr machine, and we're going to deburr the edge that we just machined on. Okay guys, we're back over here at the deburr machine, grinder, whatever you want to call it, and I changed the belts. I took the 80 grit belt off and I put on a 220 grit belt. because I don't really want to knock a lot of metal off of this edge now. I just want to clean it up really nice and just a real soft deburr on here. It don't need to be nearly as heavy as the first deburr. So I've changed the belts. We're going to go ahead and deburr a couple of these. We're going to take them out of this box and put them in this little red box here. Okay, so we deburred 6 of them there real quick, and I can show you the difference here. This one's got a really fine edge deburr on it, just enough to break that corner off. This side here has got a rough deburr on it because we just wanted to knock it off really quick, didn't want to spend a lot of time, burn up a sanding belt. But this here's a 220 grit sanding belt, and it's about worn out, but it'll get all of these aluminum parts deburred that I've got to do today. So I'm going to turn the camera off and finish deburring the rest of them. And then we'll be ready to take them to the CNC machining center.